Session 3, Implementing Playbooks. The agenda of the session is writing and running playbooks, implementing multiple plays in a playbook. What are Ansible playbooks? Ansible playbooks are made up of one or more plays. A play consists of three sections. The target section, which defines the host on which the play will run. Tester 1, all machine, tester 2, server, the machine names or which are defined in the IP address, in the inventory file, and how it will be run. This is where the set of SSH usernames and SSH related settings can be specified. And if you have configured proper sudo method, that is privilege escalation method, then definitely that can be used. So Ansible will use privilege escalation to play those playbooks on the remote targets. Variable section define variables which will be made available to the play while running. The task section lists all the modules in the order we want them to be run by Ansible. So each task consists of one section which is module, very important because task is made up of modules. Task is the outcome, is the result of a module. We can include as many as plays as we want in a single YML file. YML file starts with triple dash. This triple dash actually represent that here we start our documentation, and before that whatever we discussed, that was a preprocessor. Like in C language, many other languages specify something to be executed before the processing of the main program that can be defined. So there's no other meaning other than that, that our main task starts from here, from this triple hyphen, and contains many key values and list. In YML, line indentation is used. Very important. Line indentation is very crucial aspect. Every line, whenever you start your next section, whenever you start a block, you have to indent it at the same level. That's an important point. So line continued. So next section, whenever you start, you have to indent it. So this section is indented inside from the main section, like this was starting point. So that's how we define the blocks. So lines are indented, your code is indented to create one block. Like if this code has a one sub block, then that will be indented inside. So this indentation identify that we are starting a block. Indentation in YML line, indentation is used to indicate variable nesting to the parser, which also makes file easier to read. That increase the readability of your code. Look at this example. This is starting three dashes host where it will run. This item, this hyphen indicate that it is list item number one. Like if you want to start, and this makes it play number one. So if you want to write another play, you would write three dash and another hyphen, and that will start another play. So that's how it works in Ansible. So hosts, that means the target where it will run. It will run on web servers, whether it is a group or individual machine name or whatever, it will run on that. This is the user section where, I mean in the target section where we specify the username. This will be run as a root user. Of course, you need to specify password if you don't have key-based authentication. If you have configured key-based authentication, that must also be mentioned. So this playbook is not complete. And if it is complete, then rest of the settings will be there, has to be there in ansible.cfg, that what privilege escalation method is to be used, and you need to provide all connection related details in the ansible.cfg file. This is the second section, the variable section, where we define the variables. And as you can see, the variable section starts, variable section ends, because the indentation ends here. So whatever is under where, because we have multiple variables, so this indentation identify that okay, these are all the variables. So where section, and inside the where we define Apache which version we are using, this MOTD warning, some message we are displaying, test server. So whatever, we are not interested in the values currently understanding, but yes, the section wise we need to understand this. Then we start the task. Task 1, this is again list item, which means you can have multiple task section like this. So this is task 1. The task 1 name is setup MOTD, and module use is copy. From where to copy, what to copy. So destination file is this location. Content, you are putting the content from this variable. This is variable interpolation. How you interpolate variable in a playbook is by using double curly braces and putting them into double quotes, and there is a space before it. So MOTD warning has to be a variable which must be defined in the same playbook, or it must be included. So where is MOTD warning message? This is defined in the variable here. So this message, this content will be replaced here and it will go to this file. This is the meaning of this task. The module which is used to complete this task is copy. Similarly, if I have to create multiple tasks, then I'll use another hyphen at the same level. I'll give a name to it and I'll write the module name and I specify the details of that module. So this hyphen or dash indicate list item. That's the YML syntax. So at the same level, if you put another hyphen or another dash, that means you are defining another element of the same type. If you have one element, multiple content of the same, then you don't put hyphen. So each play exists within a list. That's what. So that was list item. As per the YML syntax, a line must start with a dash. That's what we use, the hyphen or dash. The hosts that a play will be run on must be set in the value of hosts. In the next line, the user tells up Ansible Playbook which user to connect to the machine as. And the possible options are like you can use sudo user connection gather facts. So sudo is if you set this value to yes, that would mean that you want Ansible to use sudo to become the root, since once it is connected to the machine in the play. If you use user, this defines the username to connect to the machine originally before running the sudo if required, if configured. Now, if configured, where this configuration is, don't forget that this configuration must be and should be into ansible.cfg file. Then sudo user, this is the user that Ansible will try to become using sudo. For example, if you set sudo to yes and the username is Daniel, then setting sudo user to Kate would mean that will cause Ansible to use sudo to get from Daniel to Kate once logged in, because you want to execute the playbook as Kate user, not as Daniel user, not as root user. Connection. This allows us to tell Ansible what transport to use to connect to the remote host or target host. We will mostly use SSH or paramICO for remote host. However, we could also use local to avoid a connection overhead when running things on the local machine. Gather facts. Ansible will automatically connect, run the setup module on the remote machine unless we tell it not to. If we do not need the variables from the setup module, we could set this how and set this now and save some time. That's the target section. So very crucial target section, because target you need to define everything to let Ansible connect to the remote machine and become the right user to execute these plays on the remote host. Next section was variable section. Here we define variables that apply to the entire play on all the machines. We can also make Ansible prompt for a variable if they were not supplied on the command line. Variables can be overridden by machine facts, but they themselves override the facts we set in our inventory. So they are useful to define defaults that we might collect in a module later, but they can't be used to keep defaults for inventory variables as they will override those defaults. Variable declaration contains a YML dictionary or a list of items. Like this is a variable. So these are three variable we define in our playbook, the example playbook which we are studying. Variable can also be loaded from an external YML file. It's not that you have to specify everything. You may include multiple files. You may include multiple locations and different files from different locations. That's also possible. That's allowed by giving Ansible a list of variable files to load. And for this, we use where's underscore files directive, like this, where files, and these are the files which we are loading. So content of all these three files will be available to Ansible to be used in the playbook and will be treated as variables if any variable is declared in any of these files. Then simply provide the name of another YML file that contains its own dictionary. Using where files, the file look like this following code snippet in our playbook, something like conf country au.yml, syd.yml, mysql.yml. So assuming that these files contains declaration of variables. Then task section, that was the third section, and the last section, as you have seen in our case, the same playbook we are referring again and again here. The task section is the last section of each play. It contains a list of actions that we want Ansible to perform in order we want them to be performed on the remote host. Unlike other configuration management tools, Ansible does not provide a fully featured dependency system. So this is the task: install Apache, action is yum, name is httpd, state is installed. This line is sufficient for Ansible to install Apache on the remote machine. I told you that it is a list item. So if you want to install multiple packages, and as I said, this is the list item. So the next list item of the same format in the same way can be defined using another hyphen like this. So this is first, this is second, and this is third. So there are three tasks in this snippet. First is install Apache, second is configure Apache, third is restart Apache. This is installing. This task is installing. This is copying a file from this location to this location on the remote machine. And then it is restarting Apache using this service module. So action module, copy module, uh, that is yum module is used here. Then copy module and then service module. So this is what we are doing. This is what is happening here in this playbook snippet. So tasks, let's review. Tasks, name HTTP packet is present. Module used yum, name HTTPD, state latest. So one task over. Second task with green color. Task name, latest index.html file is present. Module copy. What to copy? Source file location, destination location on the remote machine. Second task over. Third task starting with red. Name, restart HTTPD. Module name to be used, service, name of the service to be started, HTTPD, state, restarted. So this is how you can create multiple tasks like this using different modules. So plays are ordered set of tasks now. A review again. To execute against host section from your inventory, a playbook is a file containing one or more plays. And that's what we studied. So let's go inside once again. Hosts. selector is defined by host directive. Become is yes, it is privilege escalation defined in the playbook. This where's HTTP port 80. This is a play variable defined. This is a task. The name HTTP package is present. Yum is the module. Name is HTTPD. State is latest. This is tasks. The name of the task, if you see, they are very human readable. HTTPD package is present. So you can give any name. Latest index.html file is present. These are human meaningful naming convention used in playbooks. So this is a complete playbook example, proper working example to install HTTPD on all machines. So now there's a complete name, install and start, host, all, where's, variable defined, become user root, task, three tasks created here in this machine, in this playbook. Handler section. There can be additional sections which may be used and required for different purpose. The handlers section is syntactically the same as the task section and support the same format for calling modules. Handles are called only when the task when they are called from records that something changed during execution. To trigger a handler, add a notify section. So this is required notify key to the task because otherwise handler will not be called. Somebody has to call it. So we define that using notify with the value set to name of the task. Handlers are run in previously if previously triggered when Ansible has finished running the task list. They are run in the order that they are listed in the handler section. And even if they are called multiple times in the task section, they will only run once. This is often used to restart daemons. Something like you made some configuration changes into MySQL server and you want to restart MySQL. So you will create handler section to restart MySQL because you are making changes into the configuration file and you would want to restart MySQL after the configuration changes are done. This is often used to restart daemons. Okay. The following play demonstrate how we will upgrade ICSC DHCP server to the latest version, configure it and set it to start at boot time. If this playbook is run on a server where this ISC DHCP daemon is already running, the latest version and config files are not changed, the handler will not be called because handler will be called only if there is a change. And this is the section, this is the example of what we are doing. So host DHCP task, update to latest DHCP, module name yum, and this is the notify section. If there is any change because of this task, and then this will notify the restart HTTPD task. So restart HTTPD should be the name of the task which will be called. So where is restart HTTPD? This is restart HTTPD. So this will be called and this is defined under handlers. So handlers name is restart HTTPD, service is DHCPD and it is restarted. That's what the point is. So handler will be called only when it sees a change, which means if it is update is happening and if it was there actually if there was an update available, so there will be changes, so it will call this restart HTTPD. Similarly, copy DHCP configuration file. If the file is already existing and is not copied, this module will play no role, will not have any impact. So therefore, this task will not be called. The same task again, same restart DHCP. We are notifying this. So this will not be called if this section or this task is not making any change. If it is making any change, then this, yes, it will be called again. Similarly, this is another task. Start DHCP at boot. Service DHCP state is started. Yes. If this section is making any change, this will be called. If not, it will not be called. Simple. So handler will be called only if it is contributing to some kind of change, if there is something changing. Playbook modules. Using modules in playbooks is a little different from using them in the command line on ad hoc basis. This is mainly because we have many facts very available from the previous module and the setup module. Certain modules don't work with in Ansible command line because they require access to those variables, and command line will not provide those variables. There are other modules which will work in command line but are able to provide enhanced functionalities when they used in playbooks. So tasks are what? Tasks are application of module to perform a specific unit of work. Like file is a directory should exist. This I discussed in the previous lecture also. Yum, a package should be installed. Service should be running. Template, render a configuration file from a template. Get URL, fetch an archive file from a URL. These are examples of modules. There are a lot of modules available. Git, clone a source code repository. So this is AWS cloud deployment example. Host is local host, connection is local, gather fact false, task previous provision a set of instances. EC2 is the module which will be used. Which key will be used? Group, instance name, instance type, that is a type of instance in on AWS cloud. Which image will be used? AMI ID variable. So it will take the variable from AMI ID variable, which is has to be declared earlier. It's not defined in this file. That means this is not complete. Wait time true, execution count, exec count 5. Then we have count tag, demo, instance tags, name is demo, register. Register means remember it. Remember means I will be using in some another task or another play. Because whenever we register, whatever is defined, whatever is the outcome here, that will be registered. Then we have name. Add all instances public IPs to a dynamic host group. And that's why the registered details will be used here. EC2 dot instances, groups, EC2 hosts. All these will be used. So this is with items. This is a loop. With items here refer to the programming aspect. With items means all items will be, if there are 5 instances, it will use one by one all instances. So this is another example of a playbook which is not complete though, because I see some of the variables used but not defined and no mention of the variable in the playbook. But yes, a section of the playbook is relevant and important to understand. Then host EC2 hosts, configuration play, user is EC2 user, gather facts true, task is check if NTP server is available, and this is service defined. So this is one example of playbook where you can deploy an instance on the AWS cloud. Then we have very important module called template. The situation is you want to generate a configuration file which have some headings, some descriptions and details which are same for multiple hosts, and the values of these variables or some information which will be unique to each host. So the unique value in the template will be provided by means of variables and interpolation, whereas fixed part will be put into the template. So we can render this template on the remote machine where fixed part will remain fixed and the variable part will be substituted accordingly. So one of the most frequently used examples of module that require facts from Ansible is the template module. That's a very good example. In fact, we have example in our lab assignment for this template. There are multiple examples. There are two examples I have taken in the lab assignment. You will find this module allows us to design an outline of a configuration file and then have Ansible insert values in the right place. To perform this, Ansible uses a Jinja 2 templating language. In reality, the Jinja 2 template can be much more complicated than this, including things such as conditionals and loops and macros, because Jinja 2 is a very complex process. Right now, we'll be using from the perspective of Ansible only. And this is the template module. This is a very good example of template module. Like this is a template we are creating. Ansible managed, this is a variable substitution. Options, so this is a comment line. So comment will be substituted by this line. Options, listen on port number, IP. Now this IP will be what? It's coming from this very good example. I love this example. This way is doing what? For IP in Ansible all IPv4 addresses. You know that this is an Ansible variable. This is Ansible fact which is gathered, which you can check with set module also, setup module also. Ansible setup. We discussed that in the previous lecture. So it will, if there are four IPv4 addresses, it will use all of them here. So we specify all these IPs, and this is a loop. So with using the loop, we are specifying all the IP addresses. Then similarly, listen on. So this is fixed part. Directory. This is fixed part. There's nothing special here. What is variable part? We are more interested in the variable part. This is fixed part. So this will be as it is displayed. So one interpolation is coming here. Another interpolation is coming here. If authoritative names in the group names, then set this zone type, set zone directory, else set zone type and zone directory. This is programming part. So programmatically, dynamically create the content of this file using this logical flow, then using this conditional. Similarly, this is also interpolation. Wherever you see this curly braces and this percentage symbol, that means you are interpolating, you are putting the variable from facts, gathered fact, or declared variable. This is actually what you, I don't know whether you are aware of it or not. This is setting up a DNS server. This template, I can easily see that this is a template of my where etc named.conf file. This is the contents of etc named.conf file, and this is dynamically generating or dynamically changing the etc named.conf file on my remote machine. By convention, Jinja 2 templates are named with file extension .j2. However, it's not strictly required. Let's break this example down into parts. The example starts with one line code that is Ansible managed. We'll go one by one. We'll understand the template in engine thoroughly. Ansible managed was the first line. This line adds a comment at the top of the file that shows which template the file came from, the host, modification time of the template, and owner. Putting this somewhere in the template as a comment is good practice, and it ensures that people know what they would edit if they wish to alter it permanently. Then there is a for loop used for IP in Ansible all IPv4 addresses, and interpolation variable using double curly braces IP and N4. So this is how we are putting loop using Ansible gathered facts, and this is where we are ending the loop. Repetition. The for loop goes through all the elements of a list once each item for each element, each item in the list. They optionally assign the item to a variable of our choice. So our choice of variable used here is IP. It can be anything because we are specifying for IP. This can be donkey, for donkey in Ansible all host, and here we should use donkey. If I specify here Dora, so it will be use Dora. It will use Dora. So for Dora in Ansible, all IP4 and because this Dora will be a variable which will take all items from the list one by one. And here then we have to use Dora. So whatever name you specify, you have to use the same thing. But choice is ours. We can use it inside the loop. Once this loop occurs for all variables, in Ansible all IPv4 addresses, which is nothing but a list provided by setup module that contains the IPv addresses in the machine has. Inside the for loop, it simply add each item, each one of them into the configuration to make sure the bind, the DNS server, which I'm talking about, will listen on that interface. This is actually the DNS server setup. Comments are also possible, like which is given in a variable for zone configuration. This is also comment. You start with a hash, that will be a comment. Anything in between this curly braces hash and curly braces hash and curly braces close is simply ignored by Jinja 2 template processor. This allows us to add comments in the template that do not make it into the final file. This is especially handy if you are doing something complicated, setting variables within a template, or if the configuration file does not allow comments. The next few lines are the part of if statement, which set up the zone type and zone directory in our template to be used to use later in the template. So if authoritative name in the group, set zone type is master, zone directory is data, else set zone type as slave, zone directory as slaves. Anything between this curly braces percent and percent curly braces and this else part, this is if condition, this is else condition, is ignored if the statement in the if tag is false. Here we check whether the value authoritative names is in the list of group names that apply to this host. If this is true, the next two lines are set to custom variables. Otherwise, whatever we specified, else the next section will be executed. If this host is not in the authoritative group, the zone type and zone directory will be set to slave and slaves respectively. Finally, we provide the actual configuration for the zone internal.example.com, and here we are using this part in the template. Whatever is template, this is also template. We set the type to the zone type variable we created earlier and the location to zone directory. Finally, we check whether the zone type is slave, and if it is, we configure its master to particular IP address. To get this template to set up an authoritative name server, we need to create a group in our inventory file, and this is the name authoritative names, and add host under this group. We can simply call templates module, and the facts from the machine will be sent through, including the group the machine is in. The template module, now it is a use of template module, and we can simply call the template module. The template module also accepts similar arguments to copy module such as honor, group, and mode. And here this is the call to the template module. That was declare or creation of template, and this is we are calling the template now. Name configuration bind template is source is under templates directory named.conf.j2. Destination is etc named.conf. And that's what I was talking about. It is creating my main configuration file of my bind server, DNS server, or name server, all the same thing. So destination location is etc named.conf. That's what is happening here. There are more modules like set facts. The set fact module allows us to build our own facts on the machine inside an Ansible Play. These facts can then be used inside the template or as variable in the playbook. Facts act just like arguments that come from modules, such as a setup module in the first in that they work on per host basis. Then we have pause module. The pause module stop execution of a playbook for a certain period of time. We can configure it to wait for a particular period, or we can make it prompt for the user to continue. While effectively useless when used from Ansible command line, it can play very handy. It will be very easy to use and very effective when used inside a playbook. This is example of set facts. Set facts NODB buffer pool size and taken from this variable with mathematical expression divide by 2. See Ansible memory total divided by 2. So this is how we can set the facts. Means the fact which can come as an expression or calculation or used of some kind of internal expression or formula that can be used to set up a variable name. That is set fact. That's all for this session. Thank you very much.